dynasty-like.
We are celebrating champions.
Stay strong up here because that's where definitely the battle is.
We got the target on our back.
Welcome into Operation Repeat. We are live in Hartford, Connecticut, ahead of this big-time matchup between #1 South Carolina and 5th-ranked UConn. It's a beautiful 39 degrees here in Hartford, Connecticut today, and the fans are starting to make their way towards their seats at the XL Center. We are here in downtown Hartford to bring you a live 30-minute pregame show heading in to this tip-off between South Carolina and UConn. This is a big game for a lot of reasons, but maybe one of the biggest ones, one of the most exciting ones for South Carolina fans is we're really starting to feel this energy that we're at the precipice of really a changing of the guard. It sounds really dramatic, but it really is what is starting to happen with college basketball. Those Tennessees, those Notre Dames, those UConns are programs that have really done phenomenal things for the college women's basketball game, but you're starting to see the competition come, and that competition is in the form of South Carolina. It's a sellout crowd here at the XL Center. It typically seats about 15,000. They're pushing that as close as they can up towards that 16,000 mark today. I know they're pushing us media further and further away from being able to shoot this one, but don't worry, we will all be able to see this one live right here on Fox Carolina with that 12 p.m. tip-off between South Carolina and UConn. Now, this one is exciting for a lot of reasons, and the buzz around Hartford was here yesterday as I made my way around, looking around the city and starting to see people out in that UConn gear and out in that South Carolina gear as well. A lot of cheers, a lot of excitement for this one for obvious reasons. It's a rematch of last year's national championship game. That one happening in Minneapolis, where South Carolina won that national championship, defeating UConn and winning on their biggest stage yet. But it's a big stage here as well, because South Carolina has never beaten UConn in the state of Connecticut. They've beaten them a few times, 3 of the last 4 times that these two teams have actually played, but they have the opportunity now to win in Connecticut. It won't be on their home court per se, but on a big stage here at the XL Center. A sellout crowd, like we said, but some fans certainly making their presence known. Husky fans, for them, maybe even more so than the team, this is a chance at redemption for that rematch that happened at the national championship, where they lost that title game in Minneapolis. For the South Carolina, though, this game is so much more than that. It's so much more than defending that national title, because this is on their path towards repeating that national championship. And this team has been incredibly transparent about their intentions in doing so, and they have every reason to do so. This team is incredibly stacked, and they're only continuing to build their depth this year as they continue to build that strength and that confidence. A well-depth team where rebounding has been an incredible benefit for this team. They are dominating. They lead the nation in all of the rebounding categories, that rebounding differentiation, that rebounding statistic. They are owning that category, both offensively and defensively on this one. They also continue to stifle teams when it comes to their offensive production. No team this season has averaged their season scoring totals against South Carolina. So what does that mean? It means a team averages a certain amount of points every single game. No team has reached that threshold when they have played South Carolina this year. UConn, of course, looking to do just that. And for a little bit of a better look at the UConn team that we are currently seeing right now, and we'll see inside that arena behind me in just under an hour, we go to our own Joe Zone.
Well, Beth, I can tell you one thing. The team you saw last year in the finals, this team you're going to see is not the same team. New players, Aubrey Griffin. She has just been unbelievable. She averages 37 minutes a game. She didn't play last year at all. She had a back injury. She's back this year. She may be UConn's best player. 37 minutes a game. She's getting 14 points. She gets 11 rebounds. Dorka Juhas. She's another big, tall player. She didn't play last year, and she's missed a lot of games this year with a thumb injury. She's back. She can also hit from the outside. And then finally, she's actually a graduate student, Lou Lopez Senecal. She is the best outside shooter on the team. Forget about the bench. Sometimes there's 3, but they don't get many minutes. Sometimes there's 2, that's most of the time. And one time this past season, they only had 6. They had to postpone a game because they didn't have enough players. Even head coach Gino Auriemma, he's missed 4 games. UConn won all 4. His mother died last month. He's been sick. He missed 4 games, and back they came, won all 4 of those. I can tell you this, I don't know about home court advantage. It's going to be sold out. Hasn't been a ticket to be had for the last, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It's a whiteout. If home court advantage means anything, UConn will have that advantage. Beth, back to you.
All right, thanks, Joe. Really a great look at this team, and he said it. They have fought through a lot of people missing, right? Even Gino himself missing a bit this season, but they have fought through and they have persevered. For as much as we can get excited about South Carolina and the opportunities that they're having their undefeated season, this UConn team only has 2 losses, and that is with all of those losses, all of those depleted injuries, because they have continued to persevere. They've also played 7 top 25 teams already this season, and they've gone 5-2 against those teams. Their 8th top 25 matchup is now, of course, here in the form of South Carolina today. Their biggest test that the UConn Huskies will see today will certainly be in Aaliyah Boston, the reigning National Player of the Year, certainly a favorite to repeat in that position. Aaliyah has had a double-double in that national championship last year, controlling the boards with 16 rebounds, and she's only continued to solidify her presence in that double-double atmosphere. She has 7 consecutive right now. Obviously, that school record that she set just a couple of weeks ago, and she's gunning now for that SEC record. She is arguably the absolute best in the business.
I mean, I don't know how much room y'all got out there for another statue, but
Aaliyah Boston's impact is undeniable. A fan favorite and an opponent's nightmare, Boston has earned the respect she garners.
she can switch and guard your point guard. She can roll and guard your big. She can help. I don't think she gets enough credit for her basketball IQ. I think too many people just say she's tall and she's talented. They don't understand how hard it is. She gets fouled literally every time she shoots it. People just stop calling it, but she gets hit. And she powers through it, and she smiles through it, and she all shuckses through it and all that.
Gamecocks head coach Don Staley says it's the life habits that Boston has created that separate her.
There is anybody that's going to outwork her, along with being smart, along with just having a great understanding of how to play. And she's just constantly working, and there aren't too many players like her.
For all the points and rebounds and blocks that Boston contributes each and every game, her greatest contribution just might be her impact on her teammates.
She's just going out there playing hard and giving her all to the team. So it's definitely a blessing to play with somebody like her, someone that's helping us break records and leading us literally like every day.
Aaliyah Boston, a woman of the people, always making time for the fans. The whole team does there in Columbia. It's been interesting to see how teams and how fan bases have embraced Aaliyah Boston on the road. It was just this past weekend, last weekend in Alabama, where she was on the court well after that final buzzer to sign autographs and greet fans at Alabama. We've seen the reaction, the elevated numbers attending the games when South Carolina comes to town. And it's going to be interesting, though, to see how these UConn fans embrace South Carolina, expecting a bit of a hostile environment. I do want to mention a couple more things about Aaliyah Boston, and that's certainly not only the attention she grabs from fans, but the attention she's grabbing nationally as well. She's the only player in the nation ranked in the top 5 in both player defensive rating and player offensive rating. She's a force on both ends. I was talking to some of the other media here today that covers UConn and talking about her ability to not only guard in the paint and have that presence down low, but she can also take a switch and guard up top, guard those point guards, those tiny, those speedsters Masters, she can do whatever South Carolina needs and continues to strengthen this team. We are less than an hour from game time right now and gearing up for a big one here. We've got plenty more time to break down the fans' reaction to being here. We've got South Carolina Gamecocks fans who have made the trip. They always make the trip, and they are ready to support South Carolina in this hostile environment. Plus a closer look at these two coaches and their impact on college basketball. Be sure and stick with us. We have plenty more to come live here from Hartford, Connecticut on Operation Repeat. Despite a growing list of accomplishments for this South Carolina women's basketball team, there's a feat that has eluded them, and that is beating UConn in Connecticut. That is an upper hand that UConn still holds and holds proud. Now, as we've mentioned, South Carolina has beaten UConn, obviously last year in the national championship, a big win, but a neutral site. Those wins over UConn have been at neutral sites or in Columbia. Their last meeting against UConn was, of course, in Connecticut, was in that COVID year, so the environment wasn't what we're expecting today, not nearly what we're expecting, but it also was still a loss for South Carolina. Now, playing here at the XL Center, this has been a sellout since early January as fans started to build that anticipation for this matchup, recognizing what number 5 versus number 1 just might bring to the court. But it's also the first sellout that UConn has had at the XL Center specifically since 2017 when they hosted Notre Dame that year. And so obviously the credibility, the excitement for this game as big as one of those powerhouse games between Notre Dame and UConn. But not to worry, the fam will not leave their fans or their team out in the cold here in Connecticut all alone. They have shown up. They have traveled with pride. They are wearing their garnet and black around town with pride. And for them, the history is limited between these teams, but the coaching world is fairly small. And that's why they're excited to see the opportunity for these two teams to compete. And they are here today to make their presence known at the XL Center.
You know, when I convinced my mom to go to the first game, she actually did not come to a couple of first games. I haven't missed a home game since 2015, but she has.
Erin and Fran are a mother-daughter duo that are as close as they are passionate about their Gamecocks.
I was raised in a family where you supported athletics and the people in your family, so I grew up going to see my older cousins play sports, and this is just like carrying on the way I was raised, just being a part of this family now and supporting them.
The Gamecocks fam is always representing, even on the road.
Even though we may be few in number some places, we're still heard.
And with that voice comes responsibility.
I feel pride. I know that we're representing the program, and I know that we're a reflection of the program, so it's very important that when we do go to these different environments that we remain positive people. Like I've seen some places where like the fans are a little aggressive, they go tit for tat and argue. I'm not really that kind of person, except on Twitter.
And this matchup with UConn has brought some chatter online, and for good reason. The conversation is growing nationally around South Carolina, having the makings to become the next great dynasty.
UConn and the University of Tennessee were very important in kind of establishing the game, but what Coach has really done is grow the game.
It's an amazing time for them, but it's an amazing time for people who love women's sports to see what this woman has done.
That woman is Dawn Staley, and one of the many ways Staley has impressed the Honorable Jean Toll is in how she's made Gamecocks basketball for everyone.
Dawn Staley fills our arena up. And when you go to a basketball game at Colonial Life Arena, you see young people, old people, people of color, old established families, and everyone else gathered there because Dawn has gathered the team and gathered them in the community to support. And so it's certainly about the excellence of women's athletics and women's basketball, but it's also about what community means.
It's what family means.
They've given something to South Carolina that we were really missing, and I don't just mean the wins. It's the pride, the way that they've brought people together in spite of their differences.
And on this chilly Sunday in Connecticut, it's all about their shared love for the Gamecocks.
We're always going to get everybody's best game, but we're going to give them the best that we have too, and our best is better.
Those fans incredibly excited to be out here, to be celebrating and to be supporting their Gamecocks. That's really the feeling that you've gotten. I've had the privilege of going out to Columbia to cover these games, especially on Sundays, to see the crowds, to see the groups of middle-aged men there to watch this team, to see the young kids there waiting for their autographs and their selfies with the players after the games. Dawn Staley and the South Carolina women's basketball team, this program, the university, have done a great job of making this team feel like the community's team. Now, the history is obviously limited between these two programs, having just played for the first time in the last decade or so. But the coaching world is incredibly small in the college basketball world, and especially at the top of women's college basketball. Fox Carolina's Tori Carmen has a look at these two coaches and their unique relationship.
Respect among coaches goes a long way.
I don't think Gino and I are friends. I mean, I think we are respectable people.
She's not a young kid anymore. She's not a young coach anymore. She's a mature, older statesman in our game.
From two of the best in college women's basketball, respect means everything. Gino Auriemma took over the UConn women's program in 1985. In just 3 seasons, he turned things around, leading the program to the NCAA national tournament ever since. A team that once seemed untouchable, seeing some pressure from the Gamecocks. Let's rewind to last year's national title game, when South Carolina took down UConn 64-49. This time around, things are night and day.
Different lineups, different circumstances. You're playing for the whole thing. But for a February game, you know, the week before the Super Bowl, you know, we're going in there and saying, we're playing at home. We're playing in front of 15,000 people.
We're the favorites for you all. And some people may think otherwise. I'm not falling for it. You know, the narrative, you know, really isn't South Carolina's going to win the game. South Carolina's going to win the game because they have a depleted roster. That's the narrative. So for us, we're going to continue to do what we've done all season long.
It's safe to say both coaches love to win. Another thing they have in common, hailing from Philadelphia. Staley was born there, and Auriemma grew up just outside of the city. Something Coach Staley wants to make sure we all know.
He don't have 215 area code. He got 484, something like that. 610, yeah. Yeah, Philly's 215.
No matter the area code, both teams will be dialed in for today's rematch. Tori Carmen.
I understand that area code pride, absolutely. And, you know, it's going to be really interesting to see how these two coaches stack their teams, stack the lineups. For Gino, the lineup that he has in order to play in this one. This is one where I think the respect amongst coaches and their respect for their IQ in college basketball is so high that you know you're going to have to do something special and bring your best game, not just from the women on the court, but from the coaches as well in this one. We have a little bit of time left here on Operation Repeat as we inch closer and closer to that tip-off between number 5 UConn and number 1 South Carolina. Stick with us. We'll have more after this break. Welcome back out to Hartford, Connecticut for Operation Repeat. We are just over half an hour away from tip-off between number 1 South Carolina and number 5 UConn. This is a major marquee matchup for college women's basketball. I was talking with Dawn Staley at the end of the week and asked her about the importance in scheduling these sort of games. They're playing multiple top 25 teams, multiple top 5 teams in this season's schedule. And I asked her why that's so important to continue to do those. Well, she admitted that, initially she was helping build this program. It was important to schedule those types of games because it was a benchmark. It was an understanding of where their team was and showing her team what it took, what it looked like to be the best. Now that they're number 1 and have been reigning number 1 for a long time, now it's about continuing to make sure that they have a good idea of what's going to come in the postseason, so that when they see the other top 5 teams, the other top 10 teams in the country, it's not just when it's win or go home. Instead, they are making it a routine, a habit to play this top competition and to know what that takes. They have the benefit of several of those teams being, of course, within the SEC schedule, like when they play LSU next week, currently ranked number 3. They've also played Stanford, UCLA, and Maryland this year as ranked opponents as well. And while Staley won't accept that the Gamecocks have an upper hand in this game today, an area that they definitely have an edge is in their depth. You've seen it, Dawn Staley playing really 2 separate starting 5 teams. While that starting 5 has been consistent, she can rotate this entire bench. You've got obviously Aaliyah Boston, a dominant force for South Carolina, but you've got Zia Cook. She's putting up career numbers this season, averaging over 15 points per game. Brie Bell, among the toughest defenders in the country, who's also shooting 40% from outside. You've got Raven Johnson, 23rd in the nation in assists to turnover ratio. And you've got Camila Cardoso, who is 3rd in the country in offensive rebounding rate. She's coming, the bench, get this, averaging 47.2 minutes per game. They are absolutely a force to be reckoned with, and that is where South Carolina has an edge against UConn, in the depth and the numbers that they will be able to rotate out there in order to solidify themselves on the national stage once again as that top team in college women's basketball. That'll do it for us here on Operation Repeat. Tip-off is at noon right here on Fox Carolina. No need to change that channel, and we'll have a full recap for you tonight on Fox Carolina's 10 o'clock news.